Hello and welcome back to the Certcop series, the CYSA Plus course. We're going to get into our next module. We're continuing on with our threat and vulnerability management domain. We're going to talk about different web application vulnerability scanners. We're going to look at infrastructure vulnerabilities. We're going to look at different ways of assessing software and tools. We're also going to get into enumeration tools. We're going to look at wireless assessment tools and even some cloud infrastructure assessment tools. So some of the first tools that we have our Burp Suite. So Burp is a set of tools which can be used for testing web applications. And it also can be used to scan applications for vulnerabilities and even crawl an application to discover different content. The Burp Suite has a community edition, which has a set of manual tools for proxying your traffic, editing and repeating HTTP GET requests, and it's all sometimes called an intercepting proxy. It can be a valuable tool for evaluating the security of web applications and is technically considered an exploit tool. So if we go over to our Kali box, take a moment to log in here. We can see the Burp Suite actually has not only a community edition, which is a free version that has the manual tools. More advanced versions have more advanced vulnerability scanning and integration with tools like the cloud, so you can get free trials. So this, they also have a very useful news and reporting page called the Daily Swig. So if you want to get Burp Suite, you don't have to download it because it's already part of Kali Linux. Go over here to our menu. Inside of Kali, we have our different web application attacks. So we have Burp Suite that comes with it. We also have Z attack proxy, we can see here, SQL injection tools, many other different tools for working with WordPress. But right now we're going to just look at Burp Suite. So we're going to launch the community edition, and what you have to do, it'll tell you how to set up your browser first time to proxy all the traffic. So this one says my Java runtime environment is from a Debian Burp, has not been fully tested, and I may experience problems. That's fine. So you have to first set up a proxy listener inside of Burp, and also we're going to go into the web browser. Takes it a moment to open up. We can see here that Burp is now updating. Taking a moment, it says we have to read the terms and conditions. They accept. And it'll take it a moment, and business, and the browser also opened up. It says an update is available. You can choose to update it, or you can just let it go. I'll go ahead and update it in this case. First, we'll go ahead and go set up our browser, proxy all of our traffic through Burp. Chrome, you have to go all the way down, advanced settings, So when Burp first starts up, you can do a temporary project, or you can open up an existing one if you already have one. I'm just going to do a temporary. So you can actually use defaults or load from a configuration file if you have one. Go ahead and click Start. That'll take a moment. It'll say starting project, please wait. One of the nice things Burp Suite has done is they've added in an embedded browser, so you don't have to use the proxy anymore. So the Burp uses an open source Chromium browser. Because of the distribution of Linux I'm on, it has not allowed the current browser to launch. But we can see here we have previous information that was sent. Proxy service was started. We have some different activities here. We can see we have SMTP header injection, SQL injection, command injection. It gives you the vulnerability, gives you the background, and then how to fix it, how to remediate. And then it goes into the classification of the vulnerability, the weakness as well. This is from an old scan from a previous the website. Set up your target here. You can add different targets from within scope. You can even exclude targets from the scope. And you can set up different options for different payloads. Make your own payloads. They're very useful tool set. Then we have OWASP ZAP attack proxy. So this is provided by OWASP, and OWASP, you can just type in ZAP. This is a free security tool. It comes with Kali Linux. You can actually download it for Windows as well. Be mindful that do not use it on websites that you are not authorized for. It has a Linux installer and Windows installer, 94 megs for the Windows installer, and as well as the Linux. Go ahead and download the installer, and it's already done. Go through the install process. Notice it's already installed in Kali Linux. Go ahead and go back to our application tool. ZAP. Now it may have an update depending on how long it's been since you've last refreshed your Kali install. Doing the install wizard on Windows, and I also have it running here Linux. So this one says previous installation was detected. Do you want to update that installation? And I'm going to say yes. Pick where you want to install it at. Do you want a quick launch icon or not? Want it to automatically download new releases? I would say yes, because that means you get the greatest functions. That may be something that you may not want, and I'm going to go ahead and let that run. You can see the Linux version is a little bit different. This is version 2.9.0. Latest version is 2.9.0, so we're on the latest version. You can also add more functionality to ZAP as well. You can add in other controls. They have attack surface detectors, all kinds of interesting things to add to it. So when it first starts up, it's going to give you this tips and trick menu. Here it is on Linux. It's giving you informational about what it's loading. So right now it's using port 8080 is being used by Burp Suite, which is fine. So it'll just take the next available port. Do I want to persist this session or no? I'm going to say yes. If you can have it always ask you, you can change the options in the screen. So here's ZAP. So right now it's basically, you can put in targets to here and go and browse the web like you normally would. So it's on the latest version, but there's some updates for the different plugins. Go ahead and get those. Been a little while. Update all. Yes. Let that go. You can see their repository of extensions is on GitHub. Our Windows install finished. But you can also see the marketplace. So anything that you don't have and you want, they have beta versions, some that are in alpha. So if you want new features, go and uninstalling some old ones and installing the new ones. Now it looks like everything's up to date. I'm going to close. So you can run a baseline scan. You can do an automated scan. This is the way to find new vulnerabilities. So if you're new, it's a good idea to start off with an automated scan. What we'll do is we'll go to our website that we know we're authorized to scan. Go ahead and close this Burp Suite and browser because so the website we're going to check out, we're going to do test.vulnerableweb.com. This is a website that's inherently insecure, provided by Akinetics for scanning. So what we're going to do, we're going to copy that link, put that into our that attack proxy. And we're going to say use traditional spidering, that's fine. Say attack. And it's going to go out and it's going to send some GET requests, get some output. You can see a percentage in the progress bar here. It's going to add all the different URLs it finds, all the nodes, so websites it finds. Look at the history, you can search, you can see different alerts already. We've got some potential vulnerabilities already. Missing cross-site request forgery tokens, information disclosure, suspicious comments. So you can see underneath the site, kind of in a tree browser, you can see all the different pages here. You can look at the HTML code. Look at the output, which is kind of really just a log. Got your spider here, shows which different nodes were added in your active scan. So it's sending out responses, and it's getting back to code 200, which means okay. So there's different modes in ZAP. You have protected mode, standard mode, and then attack mode. If you want to really do an active pen test, the attack mode would be your type. Once you're done, you can use this to generate reports. Once the scan is complete, at 5% right now. Generate a report, and we'll call this test. Put it on the desktop. Save. And now we can go look at our scan report. And you can see what all Zap found. A lot of information, whether what the weakness was, method, potentially a fix, possible, do this to correct it. These are inherently vulnerable sites, so obviously this is going to be different than see on a traditional site because they haven't done things to check to correct it, to properly secure the website. So that's Zap. Quick introduction to Zap. There are lots of tutorials online for Zap. So what about Nikto? Nikto is a vulnerability scanner that's designated to web servers. It does things in logs. A lot of it's informational, but Nikto is a very useful tool in its own right. So Nikto comes pre-installed with Kali Linux. Notice it's not in the list of scanners, the main list. You have to expand it out to get to it. You can run it from the command line, which is typically where you're running because it doesn't have a graphical user interface. Nikto, we have this actually just showed the help file since we didn't give it any resources. So we'll say, or any switches rather. We'll say Nikto -H. We're going to test that vulnerable website. It's found out that website's IP address, its port number. It's found out that it's running Nginx version 1.4.1. Got PHP installed. And it'll take some time before the report comes back. You can actually output this to a file. So it's less user-friendly, but still a powerful tool nonetheless. It's looking through some of the different XML files. It does make recommendations as well for how to fix things. Then we have Arachne, which is this is a Ruby framework, which is modular in the sense that it's designed to help pen testers and administrators evaluate security of modern web applications. It's free. Source code is public. It runs on Windows, Mac, and Linux. Let's go look at Arachne. Go to arachnescanner.com and download the framework and the web UI. You can see an example here from the test.vulnerableweb.com. Go to the download page. There's the Linux versions. You also have the SHA-512 hash. It has a Windows version. They recommended for 64-bit, 2 gigs of RAM, 10 gigs of disk space, because it has a SQL database for the web UI. It uses SQLite 3, but if you're dealing with larger workloads, you're going to want to run PostgreSQL. I'll go ahead and go to downloads, as I already have it. Should already have it downloaded. We'll go ahead and just go grab another copy of it. Grab the Windows copy. Save. 68 meg, so it's not a huge program. Go ahead and install it. Tabs. And you can see it's running the 7-zip extractor. .go. We'll come back. So Arachne has several different packages for scripted audits. Has command line scanning utility. You can do a Python, or rather, platform collaboration. It has a RESTful API. If we open up our command prompt, of course, on Windows, we're going to go ahead and go into the download or the so once we get to the directory, so in the directory here, we have the README file. We're going to go into the bin directory. And in the bin directory, we have the different batch files, the different scans, the different scripts. So in this case, we're going to run the Arachne batch file on our vulnerable website. And this will just be a quick option. So they do say in their documentation that it's better performing on Linux. So it didn't specify any checks, so it's loading everything. And it's going to initialize all the browsers. So Windows Defender went off because it sees that it's trying to communicate via Web API, which is fine. Just know this may trigger some of your firewall rules. So it's going to run through all its different checks. So it has a bundled Phantom JavaScript executable, which is what the firewall was complaining about. So it does not only testing for SQL injection, blind SQL injection, doing directory path traversal, a lot of different things. Of course, you don't want to use this on any site which you don't have permission to. And we'll let that go. Wait for the final output. So Arachne is a very useful tool, though one thing to note is that it's actually stopped development as of January of this year. So may come back later, but Burp Suite, Nikto, and ZAP Attack Proxy are all being actively maintained. Now let's look at some of the different vulnerability scanners. The four you're required to know for the exam: you have Nessus, which is made by Tenable. The Nessus Professional, which is proprietary. It is free of charge for personal use up to 16 IP addresses. So if you go over to the Tenable website, tenable.com, and hover over the products menu, you'll see different versions of Tenable.io for containers, some for payment card industry. You have the Nessus or the IO, which is more the cloud version. Nessus, you can get the free version up to 16 IP addresses. The Professional is a unlimited IPs. Of course, if you have Tenable.io, you can use unlimited Nessus scanners. The Nessus Professional, you have one scanner and multiple IPs. The Tenable.io, you have many scanners as you might want. You can do it free for 30 days. You put in your business information. Put your information in there. My trial, where you want it to be at. Get started. All right, get started. And 30-day trial, they'll send you the information. Or if you want to buy it, it's 1 year for $22.75, depending on how many assets you have. The pricing scales accordingly. All right, so that's the different options for Nessus. See the kind of the dashboard look. Put in your information, they'll send you an activation code. Try the professional version for 30 days. This is their demonstration page. Full visibility, so you can see they have different types of scans. They have templates. You can scan based on advanced scans, PCI compliance, cloud audits. Get back reports of different vulnerabilities. Scan, do scheduled scans. They'll even give you remediations. You'll get CVSS scoring reports along with the common platform enumeration. Look at the different families of threats. They also give you vulnerabilities. You can choose to snooze them for a period of time. You can also sort by severity, critical, high, medium, low. See kind of the pie chart over here on the right hand side. Breakdown of each one. See when scans were last completed. This is a live results scan, so you can look at your historical data to see for vulnerabilities that have just come out. Already collected data, and it keeps track of your scanning history, so every scan will have a record, and you can generate reports based on your vulnerabilities, who you might want to send the report to. Reports can be sent out via email. Notice that you can put company branding and logos as well, and they have pre-built templates for reporting. It has what are known as plugins, and these plugins, each one of those plugins is a different security check for the program. So then we have the OpenWASP program, which is actually a fork of Nessus. So you can still go to openwasp.org, even though it's been replaced by the Greenbone Vulnerability Manager, or GVM. This is the OpenWASP website. You can actually try out with their live demo of the product. They also have a virtual appliance that you can download and run that inside of a virtual machine. This is the live demo site. And obviously I've logged in before, so they give you the username and password. This is your dashboard, what you would see the Greenbone Security Manager. So customize your dashboard to your liking, move stuff around, change the filter, certain things. You can filter by severity. You can download the charts as a vector graphic. Change this display of the pie chart. So that's one thing, your dashboards. You can save your dashboard as a different title. You can pick the different display if you want to see scan displays first. Let's go look at the scans. So we have some sample scans here. See different assets in those example scans. Assets, we have different hosts by severity. Red is high, yellow is medium, and blue is low. You can see the host topology diagram here. You can click and drag that around. You can actually zoom all the way in. See it by IP address. So they have the name, the IP address, the severity level. You can actually, from this, you can export the host. Click on the IP address, you'll see the information about the vulnerability. See the source. The source came from the example scan. It even produces you a nice word cloud from all your different vulnerabilities. You can see the vulnerabilities themselves, their severity level, low, medium, high, the IP address, what port. So from here, then you can look at also by operating system. You have some Linux, some Cisco, Ubuntu. You can also look at what they call network vulnerability tests. These are like plugins inside of Nessus, but Greenbone or OpenVOS call them network vulnerability tests. So you see that these are mapped to CVEs, and you can see the scoring. This is a 10. They have the base vector string. The network attack vector complexity is low. No authentication required. Confidentiality, integrity, availability, complete. And then we have some advisories referencing this particular vulnerability. Links back to the MITRE Corporation. So you can also look at all the CVEs. You can configure different targets. So we have groups here of web servers, the DMZ, printers, and some Windows desktops. You also have, you can configure a port list if you want to. Change your scanning configurations. You can generate reports. And there's actually even a CVSS calculator as well. Check your feed status. And this one happens to have feeds from the National Vulnerability Database. It has some SCAP definitions. It has cert. You can see that it is actually current. Wanted to get a copy of this in Kali, which you could get a free trial of the Pro version, or you could get the Community Edition. You get their security feed 14 days for free. They call it the Greenboat Security Manager, but if you Community Edition, so you can see that the Greenbone has a repository on GitHub as well. There are some different tools. Scanner for OpenVOS, so you can download it from here. Community Edition link is broken. And you can see the current issues that are there. So somebody already reported this. They've changed the link from the Greenbone Community Edition to the Greenbone Security Manager trial. So this is no longer comes standard with Kali, so you'll have to go in, and they recommend you download just the image into VirtualBox. Go ahead and download this. It is recommends 2 CPUs, 5 gigs of RAM. So it is 559 megs, so it's not a small image, though not overly large compared to some Linux distributions. So you see on the right a couple of screenshots from Nessus and from OpenVOS. Qualys is a cloud-based vulnerability scanner, and Qualys does have a free version. Get started with Community Edition. It will have some limitations. Download the Community Edition. Once you create an account, go ahead and log in. US Platform 1. This one, password. I'll just go ahead and create a new account, because so if you don't have an account, you can sign up for their free trial for their cloud platform. Once you create the account, you'll get the confirmation email from Qualys. Click on the Get Started link. So just like the Nessus version, you can scan up to 16 assets with a cloud agent, 16 internal and 3 external IPs. You can scan one URL and deploy a virtual scanner appliance within internal network. This is the Getting Started guide. Set up the Community Edition. So once you get an account on Qualys, you'll set up your network. You'll have to do a discovery scan, set up your data for the cloud so it can be analyzed. Look at that in a future module. Now let's talk about some software assessment tools. So we can't talk about software assessment without talking about OWASP. So the two major types of software assessment are called static code analysis and dynamic code analysis. Static code analysis means you're looking at the code without the code executing. So code review and testing must occur throughout the entire SDLC. So you can use many different tools to find bugs, including data flow analysis, control flow graphs, chain analysis, and lexical analysis. So if we open up the OWASP webpage, search for their source code analysis tools, you can see the amount of different tools that they have for analyzing source code. It varies depending on the type of platform, but there are many. Some of them are free, some of them are not. NIST also has a list of code analysis tools. Static tools are sometimes called SAST. The dynamic would be called DAST. So source code analysis looks at the tools, or looks at the code to try and find security flaws. So some tools are starting to move into a development environment, some are not. So you might also hear static code analysis being called white box testing. So there are different techniques. So you have data flow analysis, which collects runtime information about software while it's in a static state. Three common terms: you have your control flow path, and your basic block of code. You have a start, you have a function, and then you have the end of the block. The control flow graph is a representation of software by nodes that represent basic blocks. So taint analysis tries to identify variables that have been tainted with user-controlled input. Some programming languages like Perl and Ruby have taint checking built in. Then there's the lexical analysis, which converts source code syntax into usable tokens. So there are some strengths of static code analysis in that it scales well. Many types of software and can be repeatedly, like nightly builds. So things that tools can automatically find, like buffer overflows, SQL injections, they work great. Many of the vulnerabilities are hard to find automatically, like problems with authentication, access control, insecure cryptography, high number of false positives. So the tool reports a vulnerability when there's actually not one. So false positive results might get reported when analyzing an application interacts with closed source components or external systems, because without the source code, it's impossible to trace the flow of data into the external system, ensure the integrity and security of the data. So static code analysis can also result in false negatives, where vulnerabilities result but the tool does not report them. So if you have a vulnerability that gets discovered in an external component, or if the analysis tool has no knowledge of the runtime environment, whether it's configured securely. Dynamic analysis, on the other hand, is testing performed while the software is running. This testing can be done manually or by using automated testing tools. And there are two main approaches to this: the synthetic transaction monitoring and real user monitoring. So this is more of a black box type of testing, unlike the white box testing of static. So you might perform dynamic testing with a web application vulnerability scanner, like the ones we covered earlier: Burp Suite, ZAP attack proxy, etc. So the dynamic part from DAS's name comes from the test being performed in a dynamic environment. So unlike SAST, which scans an application's code line by line, DAS gets done while the application is running. So this doesn't mean the testing is done while the app's in production. DAS can be used in production but testing is usually carried out in the quality assurance environment, so after the product is already there. So it's good at finding externally visible issues and vulnerabilities like OWASP top 10, like cross-site scripting, SQL injection, directory path traversal, insecure server configurations. So one of the advantages to DAST is that it has the ability to identify runtime problems. So SAST can't do that in its static state. It also can find server configuration and authentication problems. So as well as flaws that are only visible when a user actually logs in. Now let's talk about reverse engineering. Reverse engineering is sometimes called back engineering or backwards engineering. This is a process in which software, machines, hardware, and products get deconstructed to extract exact information about how they were designed. So you take the system and break it down into its subcomponents. This could be done with desktop applications, mobile applications. So the idea is to figure out how it was designed so you can figure out how to recreate it. So the reverse engineering process helps you determine things like vulnerabilities, as well as maybe you need to order a replacement part for a system that you didn't build. So one of the great tools that we have at our disposal for reverse engineering is called Ghidra, and it was actually provided by the NSA as a free and open source tool, which doesn't even require it to be installed. Download the program, extract it wherever you download it at, and you run it. So they have an installation guide. You can run, you can have it in GUI mode, you can run it in a batch mode or a single Java command line mode. You have to have the Java developer kit in the path for it to work. However, on Linux, there's instructions for that as well. Go ahead and open it. We're going to extract it. Now we have it extracted, and we can run the batch file, run the GUI. So it's, in this case, we need to install the Java developer kit. Go get the JDK. Not to be confused with the Java runtime environment. Go to the JDK downloads page. Grab a copy from Oracle. Pick the version you need. Must agree to the licenses and conditions. Agree. And click download. A 160 meg file, so once that's installed, then we'll be able to run Ghidra, start taking apart different programs, potentially mobile apps. There's lots of different documentation. It's all self-contained. Don't have to even really reinvent the wheel. So it even has a handy little cheat sheet. Go ahead and run the Java developer kit. So that's our reverse engineering tool. There are several others, and reverse engineering could be its own course. Then we have fuzzing. What is fuzzing? Fuzzing is essentially sending random data or false to an application. This is usually done with a software or a tool that automates the test to see how an application results, or responds rather. And look up on OWASP, they have a lot of fuzzing tools. Some are protocol dependent, some are language dependent. There are different ones, some frameworks. There's the Teach Fuzz platform, there's the American Fuzzy Lop, which is an open source fuzzing tool. You can download off of GitHub. So your best way forward is going to be on Linux, because especially for the American Fuzzy Lop, there are other fuzzers that work on Windows, but essentially with fuzzing, you're trying to find different vulnerabilities. Then we have Nmap. Nmap Network Mapper is free, an open source utility for network discovery and auditing. This is probably one of the most important tools you can have for this course. So many systems and network administrators use Nmap for finding what's on the network, managing upgrades. It's multiple platforms, so you can go to nmap.org and download it directly. It also runs on Windows. If you run it from Windows, you might see the Nmap GUI version. And it has very robust documentation. This is the window you would see, and you can go out and you can type in a network address. If I wanted to scan my whole network and just do a quick ping scan and see what's out there, it's going to actually fill out the command for me. So I could take this command and I could put this over into the command line and I could run it. If you don't specify anything and just give it the network, it'll still run, but I just want to do a quick ping scan. Let's go back to our GUI real quick, and we can see we got some hits back already. These are all the systems that are up and operational. Didn't look for ports because all it did, or services, because all it did was try to ping. So what if I want to find some more information? There's a lot of different techniques you can use with Nmap. It also runs on Linux very well and Mac OS. So let's say maybe I want to do a service scan. I want to get more information. Do a quick scan. And notice I can type. Maybe I want to know also what operating systems. I'll just pick one of the hosts just for time's sake. So you can put in an individual IP address. And I can hit scan. That's going to take a little bit of time, and it should come back information on services for that host. So Nmap is a very useful tool for not only network scanning, network mapping, it can also do vulnerability scanning. It has scripting. So let's briefly look at an Nmap directory. We you can see all these different scripts that are part of Nmap. And they all end in .nse, so you can see different information about what they actually are. And you can see the script itself. It's a very powerful tool, not only for discovering the network, but also running scripts, particularly in the case of things like banner grabbing.